Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we're taking a full-blown architectural tour of the human lungs. We're going to zoom all the way from their massive, sprawling exterior right down to the microscopic plumbing that literally keeps us alive second by second.
Let's kick things off with a wild statistic. When you take a breath right now, your body actually uses a mere 5% of the oxygen you just inhaled. Just 5. The remaining 95%, you just breathe it right back out into the world so the cycle can repeat. It really goes to show just how continuous and rhythmic this whole system has to be.
Now, to really wrap our heads around the sheer scale of these organs, we got to look past those two balloons sitting in your chest. Because of their incredibly complex, sponge-like internal structure, if you were to somehow unfold and spread out all of your lung tissue, it would cover an entire tennis court. Crazy, right?
So here's our roadmap for this explainer so we don't get lost. First, the massive scale. Second, left versus right anatomy. Third, the bronchopulmonary segments. Fourth, the surfaces, borders, and pleura. And finally, the blood, nerves, and lymphatics.
All right, Section 1. The lungs' massive scale.
Did you know your lungs are absolutely the largest internal organs you possess? To visualize this, just picture two American footballs sitting side by side right behind your ribs. That's roughly the physical real estate they demand. They're just massive, completely dominating the thoracic cavity.
Moving on to Section 2, left versus right anatomy.
You might assume your lungs are identical twins, but they're actually more like asymmetric siblings. Notice the distinct differences here and how the lobes divide. The right side actually sits slightly higher than the left. Why? Well, it has to accommodate the massive bulk of your liver sitting just right below it under the diaphragm.
So when we stack them up, the right lung is the heavyweight. It dominates the space with three distinct lobes, superior, middle, and inferior, which gives it a noticeably larger overall volume. Plus, it has a shorter, more vertical main bronchus. The left lung, on the other hand, well, it has to make room for your heart. Because of that, it only has two lobes and forms this distinct indentation on its inner border known as the cardiac notch.
To really understand the left side, we have to talk about a unique structure called the lingula. The word itself actually means little tongue in Latin, which hits the nail on the head because that's exactly what it looks like. It's this fascinating little projection present only on the left lung, sweeping right below that cardiac notch. It basically acts as what would have been the middle lobe, if the heart hadn't stolen that real estate.
Okay, Section 3, the bronchopulmonary segments. Let's step inside the lungs.
Take a look at this puzzle-like, color-coded map. It shows us that the lungs aren't just solid, uniform masses. They're subdivided into structurally separate and functionally independent units. We're talking 10 of these distinct segments on the right and usually 8 to 10 on the left. The absolute genius of this biological design: if one segment gets diseased, a surgeon can go in and remove it without ruining the function of the adjacent segments. It's a real game changer.
For those of you studying the nitty-gritty anatomy, this table neatly organizes the exact naming system. Medical pros map these rooms using an S1 through S10 nomenclature. On the right, S1 through S3 make up the superior lobe, S4 and S5 are the middle, and S6 through 10 form the inferior base. The left side follows a super similar functional mat, just adapted for its two-lobe structure. It's basically the ultimate biological coordinate system.
Let's move to Section 4. Surfaces, borders, and pleura. But before we explore the borders, we've got to anchor ourselves by defining the hilum. Think of the hilum as the grand entrance and exit doorway on the inner surface of each lung. It's the sole checkpoint where all the vital structures, the pulmonary vessels, the bronchi, the lymphatic drainage, and the autonomic nerves, bundle together to enter and leave the lung tissue.
Now, this shows the precise geography of the lung's outer borders. At the very top, you have the blunt apex, which actually peaks just above your first rib right into the root of your neck. From there, the smooth costal surface curves perfectly along the inside of your rib cage, sweeping all the way down to the inferior base, which rests snugly on the upward curving dome of the diaphragm.
And check out these pleural recesses, specifically the costodiaphragmatic and costomediastinal spaces. See, the lungs are wrapped in a double-layered sac called the pleura. These recesses are essentially empty pockets at the very edges of that sac where the lung tissue doesn't normally reach when you're just breathing normally. But when you take a massive, deep breath, like right before jumping into a pool, these spaces act as crucial expansion zones, giving the lungs room to fully inflate.
Finally, we arrive at Section 5, blood, nerves, and lymphatics.
What makes the lungs so incredibly unique is their dual blood supply. You actually have two entirely separate circuits working here. On one hand, the pulmonary circulation handles the massive, heavy-lifting job of gas exchange for your whole body, but right alongside it, the bronchial circulation acts as the private, VIP life support system for the lung tissue itself.
This table breaks down that contrast perfectly. The bronchial arteries branch directly off your aorta, carrying highly oxygenated blood to nourish the structural tissues of the airways, the glands, and the pleura. Meanwhile, the mighty pulmonary system pumps the rest of the body's deoxygenated blood right into the alveoli specifically so it can grab that fresh oxygen we talked about earlier.
Now let's talk electrical wiring. Your lungs run on an autonomic or completely automatic nerve supply controlled by the pulmonary plexus. It beautifully balances two inputs: the sympathetic nerves, which widen your airways when you're stressed and need to fight or run, and the parasympathetic fibers, derived from the vagus nerves, which constrict the airways and keep things nice and calm when you're just resting.
For cellular waste management, the lymphatic drainage is surprisingly asymmetric. The system relies heavily on the massive thoracic duct to carry fluid away from the left side and lower areas, while the right lymphatic duct handles clearance for the upper right side. It's essentially a divided highway system, keeping these vital respiratory spaces totally clear of fluid and immune debris.
So when we step back and look at the whole shebang, all of this exquisite asymmetric architecture, the dual plumbing, the segmented rooms, and those hidden expansion zones, they all exist for one singular, absolutely crucial function. The lungs are the perfect centerpiece of respiration, working together seamlessly for ventilation and gas exchange to keep your cells fueled and, well, keep you alive. I want to leave you with one final, kind of mind-blowing thought. Because of all that internal surface area and constant gas exchange, every single hour, you passively exhale over 17 milliliters of water right out of your body. It's this quiet, invisible, but super active power happening inside you right at this exact moment. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I bet you're going to be hyper aware of your own breathing for the rest of the day, right?